Hello, welcome to Warblog. Today we're looking at the advance on Umm Jalal. It's actually part of this. Actually, I did this first, and kind of impressed with this map for a number of reasons. But Umm Jalal is there, and they advance on that and take it with their 25th Division Special Forces, and then they move on to a couple of these objectives. So the action takes place in this sort of area. So what I did was I ignored that, just took this sort of block here and assumed that these were in there. So what we've got is this sort of area here with these, and reduced it on here. So you can sort of see that, but what it actually is a literal translation. So here you can sort of say, well, okay, well we can move into there and attack all of that and that, or we could, we could combine a sort of assault, maybe because we've got movement, we could get both of them. But if you change the scale, suddenly you can't attack both of them at the same time. Similarly, over here, look at both of these units. But when you look at it, now this wasn't there before. I added that mainly because if you look at this, if he wasn't there, they have to go like this. There'd be nothing stopping them. So, but the thing is, it's quite empty. But the thing is, when you look at this, there's nothing in there apart from 3 motorised units and some artillery. This is a stonking lot of troops. This is, their main battle group to take out the whole of this Idlib area. So, but when you look at it in isolation, so it's exactly the same number of units, slightly positioned differently, just for the hell of it, can't get it exact. But it's just sort of an exercise to some extent in the differential between interpretation, in the sort of hex and counter format. Someone could have done exactly this and come up with something very different. I haven't put any contours in. I did want to put some in, but I just can't see any evidence of there being any significant sort of, elevation anywhere. It all looks pretty flat, farmland. So anyway, I'm going to play this game. I'm just going to play this. It'll take too long. The only thing to note about this is you've got these Turkish units, and I put them all along here because they're in observation posts. There's 5 of them, 1, 2, 3, and I had one there, 4, and him 5, but it turns out he's actually there. You know where that is, so these ones might be relocated, but this one here, whichever whatever it is there. So let's jump into playing this. The interesting thing actually, quite often I'm behind. I sort of see these things and I've got no time, and it just so happens that I've managed to at least get a bit of time, compounded to some extent by the fact that I've got a much faster production system in place now, and that to some extent was a big key factor, because this is a complex map, but it didn't actually take that long to do, because I can just go in there and say highway, 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 and just do it instead of opening up each thing as I was doing it before. So things are faster. So I'm hoping that I can sort of get a little more productive on things now because of that. So, but anyway, here, basically, I think it's pretty obvious that we're going to steamroller over these units. This is the entire battle group, and I put it in the description. So the whole degree of success here will be measured to some extent by limiting casualties to this. If you can commit casualties to this, you could say you can multiply its significance by 10, because these units have got to go on and do so much more. Also, I'm wondering whether I put too many in there, but I wanted to isolate this from that main scenario for the purposes that I've mentioned. I'm not going to labour that issue too much, but I think it's particularly interesting. And so this is what we've got. But over here, this isn't particularly strong. There's 3 1s, because they're just relatively small units, and some artillery. Now, we've got the artillery. So the question is, could these units take out both of these? And I think the answer is no. I don't think they're strong enough, because these are 2s, they're in villages, and they're dug in. So they're going to be like, up to a 5, and they've only got 3, so they're going to be like a 1 to 2 to start off with. Maybe they can do some damage. If they come out here in any way, there's a good chance that they might get attacked, because we've got these 2 units that can counter-attack, so they're in a dangerous position. Here, however, it's so stupid, because these units are probably going to get multiple factor increases, and they'll probably just walk straight over these units. Now we've got 3 in there, and that was how it was on the main board. Things like Tal al-Shaker are not objectives, but there's not much to stop them getting there. But there is all this these obstacles in the way, and we can either go through them and prepare for the next turn, which might be best, or we can go around, and we can split up this. Now, one thing to just bear in mind with regards to what we're looking at is that this is the 25th, who are essentially the Tiger forces, special forces. So I've been quite generous, and we've got 5, but they also have attached armour and attached artillery. I mean, it's not something I'm an expert on, but what you'll find quite often that military units will have or not have certain attached units, like heavy weapons units attached, or etc. And for example, the Marines have their own air force attached. It's not an air force, obviously. It's airborne units. They have their own helicopters. They also have their own strike bombers, etc., etc. Certain things they are particular because they have things that are integrated into their military structure, and these have. So they've actually got the armour and the artillery, and so I've included that. Now this might be more than they actually really got, but I've done this to represent the broader scope of the 25th, and see what they do with that. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend the first turn just moving 1 hex forward in order to just get through all these obstacles, because I don't think there's any rush. However, it would be nice maybe to get rid of this anti-tank, because if you remember what I said earlier, I think the key thing is to not necessarily consider holding on, but to inflict as much damage to these units as possible. And there isn't much that can do it. There's not even any artillery, but we do have this anti-tank, and that can hurt, especially the 25th armour, which they don't want to be doing. So, to some extent, we've got to think, well, how can we stop that? How can we prevent that? So, what we might want to do is to somehow have something that's going to really try and get ahead as soon as possible to basically take out that unit. Now, he'll probably move to there next turn, and possibly won't be able to get any further because he's anti-tank, and I don't think they can move 2 through desert, so they can get there possibly to there. Special forces, we could possibly get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We could possibly get to the position where next turn we can intercept them. So I think that's the unit to consider doing something with. Now we could move alternatively to there, and that would mean that we could go 1, 2, 3, and we could do the same thing next turn, coming from here. Alternatively, 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know how far these special forces can move through desert though, and I don't know what they've got in the way of zones of control. I can't remember actually. I wonder if it says anything in the rules. I can't really look at the rules, but okay, special forces are just like infantry, except they can cross rivers and go to sea. That's interesting. They are also able to target command elements, I don't know what that means. Move through enemy zones of control and have a strength modifier ×3 against stacks of 10 or less. In theory. So they can move through enemy zones of control. So now let's look at movement through desert. Special forces, so they can move 1. So in theory, I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. See what we could do, for all it's worth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we could be there, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it could be there, or there and there. The difference is irrelevant. We should be able to deal with this unit next turn. So I'm going to try and move there, hopefully giving myself one movement point left over. So this represents the full breadth of my anticipated movement for these units, and everything else will sort of follow on. And yet they can move through, and they're going at the appropriate speed, so they should have one movement left. So everything seems to be in line with the rules. That's incredible. I sort of wasn't expecting that. So we've got him there, but mainly because we want to deal with that. So now we can really try and take this unit out, and really try and destroy it. But I sort of want to push this one out to somehow encompass the scope of this area here, because I want these armoured units to not being caught up with these units. So this is like a shield. So we should have 4 there. So we go 1, 2, or 1, 2. Now here gives us more scope, I think, for moving this way. But here, 1, 2, here, 1, 2. This way gives us more scope for moving there. If we move there, possibly get attacked by him. But I think if I move there, I could actually take him to Braysah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and Abu Habbah. So I'm going to move there. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5. No. Right. So now I think the rest of this special forces attack needs to concentrate on that. Okay. So that we then want to be I'm going to move the artillery to there, because these obstacles essentially are a defense for us as well. So we should be able to pound this. I'm pretty sure we'll win here. And the armour, well, I think we can use that to support this attack here. Now we've got artillery, but I don't think we can attack that. I think what we want to be doing is forming up some kind of line. I think basically we should stack it up here. Gives us a little... Oh, that's not right. Fortunately, I can move everyone back. It's not too bad. Okay, so we've got some artillery. We want to bombard this first. We want to bombard that, I think. Shell that. So let's take this out first. So he's worth 2. What the odds say? It says they strength modifier of ×3. So he'll be worth 12 against 4. So we'll put 2 of these against that. The thing is, if he retreats, these guys haven't got any more movements. We might as well put everyone in there. 62.4. That's crazy. Well, that would have been 12, 24, 48 times 10%, 20%, 30%, whatever. Which seems a bit high, but probably because we're getting against a soft skin target, and they work depression 3 now. So if we hadn't put him in there, we would have had another attack. But I didn't anticipate that. You know, if I'd anticipated that, I would have not included this and this, but that's, you know, it doesn't matter too much. Now what we could do, I think we're going to try and bombard that, because that is going to be a stack. We could bombard him and hopefully try and get him to rout, but I think I'm going to just go for this, because this seems so much more effective. That's something I haven't done. I'm putting the air power in here. Because of course the whole thing with this Idlib thing is that they've just been blowing them up with air power in preparation. But we've been prepping these guys here now with this artillery. Okay, we'll use this artillery here on that. And we go in with our armour. Now, because he's in a village, he's going to be quite high. Remember, that other guy wasn't in a village. 1 to 1, so he was ×8, so he was ×4. He was ×4 in there. So what was that? Times, or I don't know. I mean, that was quite high. It's 1.9 now. So that wasn't ideal really, but we've got him out of there. So that was a real bad move. Because these irregulars are really tough in these villages, and that's deliberate. So we can end that turn now. What are they going to do? Well, he could stay there and recover, which might be of greater value than retreating into Braysah. We sort of want to get this guy somewhere where he can start blowing things up. But unfortunately, we can't go any further than that. The air defence might as well stay where they are. There's no point in even using them, really. Even having them. I don't know why I said that. Who did that? One of those statements of acts was out of sync with my mind. Okay. Now here, depression 3, what can we do with him? We could push him up this way to sit with these and try and do some good there, because he could go 1, 2, 3, and that's, you know, it's better than, he's got to move anyway, otherwise he's probably just going to get killed. They're going to get killed anyway, but at least it's less of a sort of an obvious kill. He's going to try and recover. He's just going to sit there. Or do we want to push him back into there? I think we're going to push him back into there because he's still going to get his defences. Okay, so this is what we decided to do. We're leaving all of this here. We could push one of these units out to come and reinforce over here. Maybe. Take him out and push him over this way. And hopefully he could then recover. Because what we, or will these special, because they're just going to pound it with this artillery. These special force units are going to win, but the thing is, they've got to fight for it, and they're as well fighting for it elsewhere, unless we can take out this artillery. Now the thing is, if we move away, that artillery will be less effective, because it will either have to move this way or through here. Either way, it won't be able to fire next turn. So we're probably better off putting this huge stack there, and then moving into there. So I'm going to give up Jalal. Maybe not the best move. Right. So out of range of the artillery. The artillery can't do much. This is a tough cookie. We know that. We can't afford to attack with the armour again, alone. But we've got this unit here, and we put him there for a purpose. And that purpose is now becoming slightly more evident, and we didn't consider the movement, the scope of these special forces when we moved there, because we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, attack and move into there. Now we can take Braysah straight off, look. Or we can attack there. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Because I'm more interested in pounding these units first. So what's the plan of action? The plan of action, because I do feel it's relevant to sort of, actually state what you're thinking. I was watching, I always say this, I feel mean, but I was watching this other Hudson Counter game on YouTube, and the guy started playing it, and he's moving all his troops forward, and he's sort of hunting through them as he's moving them for some mortars or artillery or some sort of indirect fire, and sort of moving them forward, and sounded disappointed that he couldn't find any. And then after that he scrolled down a bit and he found some brand carriers. There were 4 of them. He said, oh, that'll come in handy. That really changes the game. That's a game changer. And I'm sort of sitting there thinking, idiot. And obviously maybe that's a bit mean, but he obviously hadn't looked at the board and figured out what he's got before he starts moving. How can you play a strategy game without understanding what your forces have in order to commit a strategy? It's more like it's not a game at all. I was just going to say it's more like a real-time strategy. It's sort of an RTS type thing, or where you don't know what you got. It just seems to be that that's prevalent, and I think the answer to it, the solution, is self-discipline and forcing yourself to consider. See, I don't like to use the term going slower. You don't have to go slower. You just have to sort of say, okay, this is why you should maybe have written statements or written policy documents. So, well, this is what we're going to try and do. Instead of just sort of moving everything, like we're playing football, in kindergarten, where everyone chases the ball. You place people strategically, off the wing so that you can pass the ball to them and they can run along with it on their own. Things like that. So in this instance, we want to take this out, essentially, before these units can get there. So we can move 1, 2, 3, and then that will give us the scope to attack. But we're also going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and he will attack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can get 3 units. 1, 2. With him, what I want to do is go 1, 2, 3 and take Jalal. So that's his role. Now these guys, once they've got there, they're essentially going, the objective is to attack. So this person might attack, push him out, and then this person, who's only moved 3, will then move in there. And then from there, we'll attack this anti-tank unit. Now we really want to be blocking that anti-tank unit. So that's our plan of action. We've got this guy attacking. So we've got our first attack going in, once we get there. And then ideally, this guy moving in. And then, whatever's left along this front, attacking that. This will of course mean that this air defense unit will probably be retreated to there. I did that because it was almost a perfect square, look at that. And there. Or there. I mean, he could retreat to there. He's probably more likely to retreat there or there because everything else will be his under control other than this. I mean, he might retreat there, there, or there. Now this unit, I'm going to take Braysah. Now I put him there last turn to give me the option to commit to this attack or to threaten this, and based on that option I elected to take Braysah. I think that he will come in handy, especially for fighting these units with these armoured units, so being so delicate. I think that this whole section over here is going to be something that really needs to be considered after we've done whatever we're going to do with these units. So that's my plan of action. And my plan of action doesn't include pressing end turn now. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if we can somehow, here's the. Things we don't know, do we? This is the problem I always have. This is the problem, so I don't know which ones. I don't know who he is. He's at 1. Yeah, I know he's at 1K, but I don't know what his designation is. Oh, it's a pain because. Who is he? I should be able to do it. I'm going to assume that this guy, this is the one that with 3 movement left. So I'm going to go with this, attacking this. Got it. So he's now moved out. He's got no movement left, but he's the one with the 3 movement left. So he's going to move into Abu Habbah, and then we're going to do our attack on the anti-tank system. So that was my plan of action, perfectly implemented, and of course he is going to take Jalal, and he is going to go to Braysah. Now here, we could commit him further this way. I don't want to leave them unstacked, because they could possibly get a 1-to-1 against them. We'll move everyone 1 ahead. We'll use the artillery here. .25. I'm going to pause on that attack because I don't want to roll another 1-to-1. Right. So they've been. I was going to use a rude word there. I won't. They've been stopped from getting to their objective that they hoped to get to because they didn't think ahead. I wonder who didn't think ahead, because it wasn't me. Oh, it was me, wasn't it? It's my turn. I didn't think enough. I didn't consider that they would do that. These special forces being so much more mobile. So the thing is, we don't really have much left. We're sort of inconvenienced to the greatest extent, to say the least, because we can't quickly get into Tal al-Sheikh or anywhere. We're going to be almost 1, 2, 3, 4. This artillery, whatever happens, will be able to move there. Will have incredible scope. So moving out of Jalal was a mistake. I mean, we should have made a stand at Jalal. However, I've seen an opportunity. I will explain the opportunity in a second. Oh, I've done it twice. Let's assume the artillery moves there. It will have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it goes like that. That'll be his range. So basically, these units have got to be outside of that if they don't want to be taken up by this artillery. And that doesn't include what happens if he moves there. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the same difference, really, which is interesting. So, what we want to do, what the opportunity I've seen is to attack there, but that will sort of still leave us within the scope of this artillery units we can attack and move in, which we won't be able to do. So we're not going to be able to get away from that artillery. But the opportunity that we've got is to attack this unit. We could also attack this unit. Now this is what I was talking about playing the game to avoid losses to the 25th. We can bring more here. So wherever we go, we're going to get this artillery. Here would give us more scope to actually then attack this artillery. So this artillery is now in a weak position that we hadn't considered. And I think we're also going to split up. We're going to go for that. It'll give us 10% bonus. All of these guys. So that was terrible, catastrophic losses against the 25th. So they've got a big 1 in their favour now. But they haven't taken Jalal. And now the artillery, basically it's just these units against these special force units and this artillery. The armour is over here. It could move away and deal with this, but this is like a dangerous situation now because these people are vulnerable. Here, we're going to take out something in here. It doesn't matter which one. 0.2. So this was like one of those YouTube videos where you see that little dot going into the distance and you see their jeep blow up, because you use anti-tank guided missiles to blow jeeps up. They're actually, I've said this before quite a few times, they're actually marketing them for more general purposes, such as blowing jeeps up and, entrenched positions. I mean, when I say entrenched, I mean where people have built a dry stone wall and they're hiding behind it. That sort of entrenched position. I'm usually at the top of a hill. So that's that. With regards to these guys, I mean, they're air defense. There's nothing going on air defense wise. But we could move into Jalal. That could be like that sort of heroic move. Let's see whether we can get there. There we go. We've taken Jalal. So the fight is on for Jalal now. So will they be able to afford the time to go after this little ATGM unit? Here we're just going to hold, but we could sort of move out and spoil an attack on this. We can't really do much here, but we could actually attack that stack, but it'll only be a 1-to-1. But if we won, that would be good. If we've got a defender retreat on that, that would send them to the 4 winds, and would be another blow, but they're not the 25th, so they're the ones we want to create damage against. And we can move them there and come out here and have a 2-to-1 against that, or 2 units to 1, so that would actually be sort of more like 2, possibly 3-to-1 against that. Again, another devastating blow, giving up the objectives for the greater objective bonus of causing damage against these units. That's interesting. I don't want to be too reactionary on this, but that might be a good idea. That it would give up these 2 objectives, which they can't necessarily just walk into at the moment. We don't do anything, he at least gets to recover. I'm not going to do that because I've been adventurous enough here. I think I'm going to leave this as it is for a turn and see how that pans out. Okay, so the Syrians. So they've got a problem down here. So they've got multiple objectives now. They're trying to take this, obviously. But they want to also take this. We could move. We could move this guy there, these guys there, and then do a combined attack into there. Here, we've sort of got to go on the offensive. We can use our artillery in some way to attack these, but the artillery is sensitive. We could give up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've sort of got to shield our artillery somehow, but we could possibly come down here, take Jalal, which is now again back in possession of the militants, the Hayat al-Sham units. But we can move down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But the thing is, we could possibly see if we do something that doesn't involve him, we can recover. We can end up attacking from here, because we should get good odds. It'll be 7-to-1. So we can move with this unit to there. They'll attack into there, forcing that unit to. There's a zone of control here, 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 and here. So he'll have to move into that stack. if we win, which we should. But that would also leave him with movement, in theory, because it would go 1, 2, which would be reduced because of the road. So that'd be like 0.8, let's say 2, with a bit to spare. 3, 4. Now, attacking will give us spend 2 movement points, so that's 6, but we've got a bit to spare, which means we're going to have to attack next turn on that. Now really, we want to put something in Jalal, and then he could move possibly into Jalal there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then with these 2 units, we can push the other one. So it doesn't really matter where, but we can push him to there, so we can get 1, 2, 3 onto that. We can use our artillery on that. We'll have blocked this route here, making it difficult for them to get to the artillery. The artillery can pound these, and he will possibly have a little bit of movement left to possibly attack that, but maybe not. But I think that's the plan of action. So what's his movement? 4. See, that's half, so he's got a whole movement point spare. And we eliminated him. That was even better. He's got 1 movement point, so he could actually himself move into Jalal. Now the question is, do I do that? Do I change my plan? Which is a bit of a cheat, but is that maybe they just were so good, did so well in an impetuous movement, or was all this happening simultaneously? But I'm going to elect. Well, the thing is, no, I don't, because I want to. You see, this is plans of mice and men. If I do that, he won't have any movement. He's got movement to attack into there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he's going to come down here. So we're sticking to our plan. So we've got that line there, protects our artillery. And he's going to come down to here. We've got that threat on there. We've got our artillery coming in here. .85. 0.6. 1.3. 0.85, pretty much a 5.6. And they need to move the screen, just go straight into the assault. Fingers crossed. 7-1. DE, so we probably didn't even need all of that. My brain doesn't work so well. So we routed one of them and he vanished. Now we could attack that stack, but 0.35, 0.3. That would be adventurous, wouldn't it, to attack that? I mean, he's got a depression of 0.15, so he'd be at like 9 versus 5, probably a 1-to-1, so I don't think I want to do that. The only thing is, he could move there, possibly get an attack on him. If we move there, we could possibly keep that distance. And we could probably go a step further and clearly reinforce Jalal. He's not moved because we want to recover. Here, based on the good news from this side, use this artillery here, and hopefully 0.95, 0.3. With our combined arms, hopefully with our special forces inclusive and our armour, we've got a 7 to 1 and a D, so let's push them out. Now that they're out of the town, we can basically chase him. Well, we're going to leave these there because we don't want the artillery being left alone, so we'll take Tel Frigi, and we don't need to split the armour up, we'll just go in with the assault. .2, we've got 2 movement, so we can now just chase this unit. And I'm going to split the armour up here for no reason at all. Let's not do that. And we eliminated him. So that's that. So it wasn't a perfect victory, but it looks as though we're pretty much there now. Now they've got a little sting in their tail. They've not lost this place. He wants to recover, possibly, because there's no point in him moving. We've got one more possible attack, but we're not going to be able to do much against Jalal. It's too well defended. The question is, do they want to try and give these guys a bloody nose? We've got a weakened force down there. We can push these units into their attack and cause a little more pain, or we could run away. To Abu Habbah, which I think we're going to do, because I do like to play with a little modicum of common sense. I think it would have been a schoolboy attack. We're going to commit. I think he could at least move 2. And we're going to hold there. So it's as you would expect, but they have taken some losses. We could have inflicted a little more on this unit, but we chose not to because they don't want to inflict any more on themselves. Okay, and I'm going to leave it at that because I think the rest of it is just sort of, it's just plodding through. We know that they have massive superior power here. Even with just these 3 units. Let's just. We're not going to bother with this side because we know they're not going to win. We can commit something over here, but let's just look at the situation. For example, we can move all this artillery there. Zero. So no routes, but severely weakened. He's under pressures too. There's no point in holding him out any further. Okay. No, I've messed up. think, yeah, full surround. It's like a hammer anvil action, though, nonetheless. We can't get there. So clearly we can just clean up here. That was a sort of fairly impetuous, not even bother with any more secondary movement. So that's that. I thought that was... So that's that. They haven't taken too many losses. 0, 0, 0.15, so that's a missing truck. 2, 0, 0, nothing on the artillery, nothing here, nothing on all of that. So that was it. So it wasn't perfect, and it's that gives the sort of, you know, the edge. It was still a defeat, but I wouldn't say it was sort of an effective defeat, but it wasn't the spectacular defeat that we should have been aiming for. And that's that. And of course, the thing to bear in mind that this is just a subset of this whole picture. So we've just done these, we've just taken out this little area here, and that was all we've done. That was all that was about. So when we consider what else there is to do, we've already started shelling these Turkish positions, which I find interesting. So that's that really. The only thing that's sort of missing from here is the preliminary airstrikes, but considering everything, I don't think the game lacks for that. It would just make it even sillier, really, because obviously they're going to, you know, it's a walkover. But it makes you wonder, really, you know, whether or not, you know, it is actually quite like that. Because I imagine that what's happening is they're shelling these places, showing overwhelming strength, and the Tahasham units are retreating, as we sort of did there. You know, they would probably be more likely to retreat here. You know, you just have to show the force. I mean, there's not much more that can be done about that, as opposed to fighting bitterly to the end. But they probably will make stands, but, you know, because you don't know where that is, you can't assume that they're going to retreat. You can't assume that they're not going to counterattack, as we did here at Jalal. You know, when they took it for a second, I think, or they pushed the Syrian army out of it. Anyway, I'll leave it at that, and I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.